Chapter 1: Descent into Static. The van bounced hard, suspension groaning, throwing gravel against the undercarriage. Inside, the air hung thick with the smell of damp gear, old coffee, and stale anticipation. Alex Volkov gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white under the road grime. He squinted through the bug-spattered windshield at the overgrown track barely visible between encroaching pines. Forest choked this forgotten corner of the state, reclaiming roads, swallowing history. Perfect territory for subterranean ghosts. "You certain this is the turn-off apex?" Ben Carter's voice crackled from the passenger seat. He adjusted his glasses, peering at a ruggedized tablet displaying satellite imagery overlaid with faded survey maps. "GPS is spotty out here. These old military access roads aren't exactly on Google Maps." Alex grunted, easing the van over another rut. Elena's research pinpointed the coordinates, said the locals used to call this stretch the Wire Way decades ago, supposedly led straight to Auxiliary Post Sigma 7. In the back, wedged between equipment cases, Dr. Elena Petrova leaned forward. Her gaze was fixed on the dense woods sliding past the window, intense, searching. Sigma 7 officially never existed. Decommissioned reports list only Alpha through Rho facilities in this sector. My grandfather's transfer orders mentioned Sigma 7 specifically. Then, silence. Her voice was quiet, tight with decades of unanswered questions. Beside her, Marcus Thorne sat impassively, a bulwark of calm muscle. His eyes, however, constantly scanned the tree line, missing nothing. He adjusted the tactical harness cutting across his chest, the movement economical, practiced. Perimeter looks clear. No recent tracks, human or animal, near the supposed access point. His tone was flat, professional. Elena had insisted on hearing security. Alex hadn't argued. Exploring undocumented Cold War bunkers carried inherent risks beyond structural collapse. Chloe Dubois, the final member of the team, sat cross-legged on a storage crate, headphones clamped over her ears. A high-sensitivity microphone on an articulated arm was positioned near the van's slightly open rear window, recording the ambient sounds of the forest. She occasionally made notes on a small digital recorder, her expression focused, absorbing the world through sound rather than sight. She lowered the headphones slightly. The forest floor sounds, compressed. Like there's something solid underneath not too far down. Lots of low-frequency resonance. Alex nodded. Consistent with a buried structure, we should be close. The track abruptly ended in a choked clearing dominated by a brutalist concrete structure almost entirely swallowed by vines and earth. A square ventilation shaft housing, listing slightly, jutted from a mound of overgrown soil. Beside it, half buried under decades of leaf litter and erosion, was a set of heavy steel doors, rusted shut, scarred by time and weather. A faded, barely legible symbol, a stylized sigma pierced by a lightning bolt, clung to the pitted metal. Sigma 7, Elena breathed, her hand unconsciously going to a worn silver locket around her neck. They spilled out of the van, the sudden silence of the clearing pressing in after the engine noise. The air was cooler here, smelling of damp earth, decaying leaves, and something metallic, ozonic. Ben immediately began unpacking sensor equipment, atmospheric analyzers, radiation detectors, broad-spectrum frequency scanners. Marcus did a slow circle of the clearing, his boots crunching softly on the detritus, hand resting near the sidearm holstered on his thigh. Chloe aimed her microphone towards the steel doors, tilting her head. Odd harmonics, very faint, below 20 hertz mostly, like massive machinery idling far away but irregular. Alex approached the doors, running a gloved hand over the cold, weeping metal. A thick locking bar fused by rust held them fast. All right, team, standard procedure. Ben, atmospheric readings near the seals. Marcus, watch our 6. Chloe, keep recording. Elena, stay behind Marcus. Ben waved a handheld device over the door seams. Oxygen 20.8%, trace methane, negligible CO2 spike. No exotic particulates detected. Background radiation is normal for the region. Whatever's inside, the air isn't immediately toxic near the entrance. Good. Alex pulled a heavy-duty hydraulic spreader from the van, the jaws. Let's see if 70 years of neglect respond to brute force. Positioning the spreader's jaws against the locking bar took effort. The angle was awkward, the ground uneven. Marcus stood a few yards away, facing the forest, posture alert. Elena watched Alex, her expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. Ben monitored his scanners. Chloe stood utterly still, headphones back on, microphone aimed. Alex engaged the hydraulics. The pump whined, the metal jaws bit into the rusted bar. Tension filled the air, thick and palpable. Sweat beaded on Alex's forehead despite the cool air. The bar groaned, flakes of rust showering the ground. With a sudden, ear-splitting shriek of tortured metal, the locking bar snapped, the broken ends spraying orange dust. The heavy doors remained shut, held fast by pressure, corrosion, and time. Phase 2, Alex muttered. He retrieved pry bars and a sledgehammer. He and Marcus wedged the bars into the seam, straining together. Muscle corded in Marcus's arms. Alex grunted with effort. The right door moved perhaps a centimeter, grating horribly. Hear that? Chloe asked suddenly, lowering her headphones again, her brow furrowed. Underneath the scraping, a hum. It changed pitch when the bar snapped. Ben checked his scanner, picking up a spike. Low-frequency electromagnetic field, pulsing, wasn't there before we broke the lock. Elena stepped closer. Could it be residual power, emergency systems? Possible, Ben conceded, tapping commands into his tablet. Or just decaying equipment generating interference. Hard to tell from out here. Alex took the sledgehammer. Stand clear. He swung, the heavy head hitting the door seam with a deafening clang that echoed flatly in the enclosed clearing. He swung again and again. The impacts jarred his arms, but the right door finally groaned inwards a few inches, releasing a puff of stale, cold air that smelled like wet concrete and electricity. Darkness lay beyond, absolute and profound. All right, Alex panted, lowering the hammer. Let's get lights and primary entry gear. They worked quickly. Headlamps were switched on, powerful beams cutting into the oppressive blackness. Alex clipped a respirator onto his belt, offering one to Elena. Ben readied portable environmental sensors to deploy inside. Marcus checked his sidearm, chambering a round with a decisive click that seemed unnaturally loud. Chloe adjusted her audio rig for interior recording. "Standard formation," Alex ordered. "Marcus point, I'm second, Alina, then Chloe, Ben covers rear. Maintain 5-meter spacing. Radio checks every 10 minutes. No unnecessary chatter. We stick to the primary route, mark junctions. First sign of structural instability or hostile environment, we pull out." "Agreed." Nods all around. The gravity of the moment settled over them. This wasn't a decaying factory or an abandoned subway tunnel. This was a sealed military installation lost to time, potentially holding Cold War secrets and unknown hazards. Marcus pushed the heavy door further open, the rusted hinges screaming in protest. He swept his light into the void. Concrete steps descended steeply. Water trickled somewhere below, the sound echoing upwards. The air flowing out felt unnaturally cold, carrying that faint scent of ozone. "Clear ahead," Marcus reported, his voice tight. He started down the steps, boots crunching on unseen debris. Alex followed, his own beam joining Marcus's, illuminating damp, stained concrete walls. Graffiti was absent. Decay was the only artist here. Water seeped through cracks, tracing dark paths down the walls. Thick electrical conduits, shrouded in cobwebs and dust, lined the ceiling. Alina hesitated only a moment at the threshold before descending, her light dancing nervously. Chloe followed, microphone held high, capturing the soundscape of the descent, the footsteps, the dripping water, the low, almost suboral hum that seemed to vibrate through the soles of their boots. Ben came last, pausing to place a wireless sensor relay near the entrance before pulling the heavy door partially closed behind them, leaving a gap just wide enough to slip through. The sound from the outside world diminished instantly, replaced by the amplified echoes of the bunker. The stairs ended on a small landing facing another heavy steel door, this one marked with a faded red biohazard symbol and Cyrillic lettering underneath. A small, grimy window set into the door was dark. "Decontamination airlock," Ben murmured from the rear. "Standard Soviet design for facilities like this." Marcus tried the handle, locked tight. A corroded keypad sat beside it, its surface cracked. "No forcing this one without risking seal integrity," Alex said. "Look for an override panel or manual release." Their lights scanned the walls. Alina pointed. There, behind that junction box. A small, recessed metal plate was visible behind a dangling tangle of cut wires. Alex carefully pulled the wires aside. The plate had a simple keyhole and a small lever. Proprietary lock. No key. Ben knelt, examining the keypad. Power conduit looks severed. Maybe intentional during decommissioning, maybe just decay. If we could reroute auxiliary power. "Hold on," Chloe whispered, touching her headphones. "That hum, it's louder near the door, and there's something else mixed in. Rhythmic static, like a distorted voice trying to form words." Alina frowned. "I don't hear anything." Alex strained his ears. Only the drip, the faint low hum. "Static. Could be interference from our gear, Chloe." "No," Chloe insisted, her eyes wide. "This is different. It's patterned. Listen." She unplugged her headphones from her recorder and held one earpiece out. Alex put it to his ear. He heard the amplified sounds of the bunker, the low thrumming, and then a faint, almost imperceptible crackling. It did seem to have a broken rhythm, like badly tuned shortwave radio static trying to resolve into speech. He couldn't make out any words. It was unsettling, a ghost signal in the machine. "I hear something," Alex admitted, handing the earpiece back. "Could be anything, equipment decay, water interference." "The M field is stronger here too," Ben reported, checking his scanner. "Definitely centered beyond this door." Marcus ignored the discussion about sounds. He ran his fingers along the door frame, then inspected the hinges. Manual override should be mechanical, not electronic, for safety. Check the frame base. Following Marcus's logic, Alex swept his light along the floor where the door met the concrete. Almost hidden under grime and debris was a small, recessed ring-pull handle, similar to an emergency release. He hooked his fingers into it and pulled. With a hiss of escaping air pressure and a clunk of internal mechanisms, the airlock door's locking bolts retracted. Marcus pulled the heavy door open. Beyond lay a short, sterile-looking corridor tiled in stained white ceramic. Another identical door stood at the far end. Control panels lined one wall, screens dark, buttons dead. "Standard airlock procedure," Ben explained. "Inner door won't open until outer door is sealed and the cycle runs, but the system's dead." "Let's move," Alex urged. They stepped inside the airlock. Marcus immediately went to the inner door. Alex and Ben examined the control panels. The Cyrillic labels were faded but legible. Buttons for cycle, emergency flush, manual seal. None responded. "Inner doors locked too," Marcus reported. "Same keypad setup, same dead conduit." "And the same manual release?" Alina asked, scanning the floor. "Found it." Alex pointed his light near the inner door's base. As Marcus reached for the inner ring pull, Chloe stiffened. "The static, it's louder, clearer." She held up a hand for silence. In the confined space of the airlock, the low hum was more prominent. And beneath it, Alex could now faintly hear the rhythmic crackling Chloe described, even without headphones. It seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, a dry, sibilant whisper just below the threshold of comprehension. "SHHH, click, sector, SHHH, opus nost, click." "Did you hear that?" Alina whispered, eyes wide. "It sounded like words Russian." Ben's scanner chirped. "Localized M fluctuations, right here in the airlock, unstable." Marcus ignored them, focused on the task. He gripped the ring pull. "Wait," Alex said suddenly. His head throbbed with a dull ache that had started moments ago. He looked at Marcus, then at Ben. A flicker of irrational irritation sparked within him. Why was Marcus always so impatient? Why wasn't Ben figuring out the power faster? Let Ben see if he can bypass the keypad first. Maybe get the system logs. Marcus straightened slowly, turning to face Alex. His expression was unreadable in the harsh glare of the headlamps, but his posture radiated tension. "The manual release is right here, apex. Faster, safer." "It's my call, Marcus," Alex snapped, the irritation flaring hotter. "We need intel, Ben." Ben looked flustered, caught between them. Uh, I can try splicing into the panel wiring, see if there's residual battery power for the local memory, but it'll take time. Marcus's way is quicker to get through. Take the time, Alex insisted, his jaw tight. He didn't understand his own sudden stubbornness. It felt important, vital to assert control. Marcus took a half step towards Alex. The airlock felt abruptly smaller, charged with unspoken hostility. We're wasting time. Procedure is to secure the area. That means moving forward. Your procedure involves following my orders, Alex countered, meeting Marcus's stare. Chloe whimpered softly, pressing her hands to her temples. The static, it's getting louder, it hurts. The rhythmic crackling intensified, the phantom whispers seeming to scrape directly against Alex's eardrums now. Protocol, SHHH, Chimera, click, narration. Elena backed against the outer door, her face pale. Alex, Marcus, please, let's just open the door. A wave of dizziness washed over Alex. The low hum seemed to burrow into his skull. He felt a surge of suspicion towards Marcus. Was the ex-military man trying to undermine his authority already? Maybe he had his own agenda down here. Fine, Alex ground out, stepping away from the inner door. Open it, but you're on point through there. Marcus gave a curt nod, the tension easing slightly but not disappearing entirely. He pulled the ring handle. Another hiss, another clunk. He pushed the inner door open, revealing a long, concrete corridor stretching into darkness. This section felt different, colder. The air tasted metallic. Wires hung like entrails from damaged ceiling panels. Occasional pools of stagnant water reflected their lights. Marcus stepped through, weapon ready. Alex followed, then Elena, Chloe, and Ben. As Ben crossed the threshold, his main frequency scanner emitted a sudden, high-pitched warning tone. Whoa, Ben fumbled with the device. Massive frequency spike just now, focused spectrum, extremely low frequency, but intense, right where we were standing in the airlock. He looked back, but the space was empty. The reading was already dropping back to the previous level. What the hell was that? Chloe leaned against the corridor wall, breathing heavily. The static stopped. The moment we all cleared the airlock, it just cut out. Her headache remained, a dull pressure behind her eyes. Alex scanned the long corridor. Several doorways branched off, dark and foreboding. The low hum persisted here, seeming to emanate from deeper within the complex. He felt a prickle of unease that went beyond the usual risks of exploration. The sudden argument with Marcus, Chloe's pain, the strange static, the energy spike. It felt wrong, coordinated. Eyes open, Alex ordered, his voice rough. Something's not right here. Ben, keep that scanner active. Report any anomalies immediately. Marcus, take it slow. Marcus nodded, his light cutting methodically through the gloom ahead. He took a step forward, his boots splashing softly in a shallow puddle. From somewhere deep in the darkness ahead, a sound echoed back towards them. Not a drip, not a structural groan. It was a single, sharp click, like a relay engaging, or a switch being thrown. Then silence, deeper and more absolute than before. The low background hum vanished completely. Even the distant trickle of water seemed to cease. The sudden absence of sound was as jarring as a gunshot. Ben tapped frantically at his scanner. Field's gone flatline. All ambient frequencies just dropped to zero across the board. Dead air. Chloe pulled off her headphones, her face etched with confusion. Everything gone. No hum, no static. Nothing. Marcus raised a hand, signaling a halt. He stood motionless, listening. The silence pressed in, heavy and suffocating. Alex felt a cold dread creep up his spine. Systems don't just die simultaneously like that. Not unless something turned them off. Or unless something else, something far stronger, just drowned them out. Elena's hand tightened on the locket at her throat. Her knuckles were white. Down the long, dark corridor, far beyond the reach of their lights, something scraped against concrete. A slow, deliberate drag. Then silence returned, even more profound. Waiting. Chapter 2. Echoes in Dead Air. The silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, pressing against their eardrums like deep water. Every shuffle of their feet on the gritty concrete, every rustle of fabric, seemed explosively loud. The sudden absence of the pervasive low hum left a void, a negative space that felt actively hostile. Marcus stood rigid for a long moment, head tilted slightly, M4 carbine held at a low ready. His beam cut a swathe through the darkness down the corridor, revealing more stained concrete, drooping cables, and the black maw of the first branching doorway on the right. The scraping sound did not repeat. "Everyone hold," Alex commanded, his voice tight, unnaturally loud in the dead air. "Report status." "Pulse elevated but stable," Elena responded, her voice trembling slightly. She clutched her own flashlight like a weapon. "Just ringing silence," Chloe murmured, rubbing her temples. "The pressure is intense." "All my gears showing flatline," Ben confirmed, frustration edging his tone as he tapped uselessly at his scanner screen. Field zeroed out, wideband radio silence. Even the geophone sensors aren't picking up background vibrations anymore. It's like the entire bunker just became an anechoic chamber. "Or a Faraday cage," Alex muttered. He swept his light back towards the airlock. Nothing moved. The inner door stood slightly ajar, a block of deeper shadow. That scraping sound. Direction. "Ahead," Marcus stated flatly. "Deep. 50 meters, maybe more." "And the click," Alex pressed. "Closer," Marcus replied. Sounded like old relays, maybe 20 meters ahead. Alex considered. A trap sprung. A system failing catastrophically, or something else waking up. "All right, we proceed, cautiously." Marcus checked that first doorway. "Ben, try to get any kind of signal out, even a burst transmission. Don't expect it to work, but try. Chloe, Elena, stay tight behind me." Marcus advanced slowly, weapon leading, his light probing the doorway on the right. Alex moved to cover the corridor beyond him. Ben unslung a compact satellite uplink device, fiddling with its settings despite his skepticism. Chloe stuck close to Elena, her microphone still held up, though likely recording nothing but their own amplified movements. Marcus paused at the doorway, listening intently before sweeping his light inside. Small office, looks cleared out. Desk, overturned chair, papers scattered. He stepped cautiously over the threshold. Alex kept his focus on the main corridor. The silence felt watchful. He found himself straining to hear, imagining phantom noises in the absence of real ones. A faint scuff, was that Marcus or something else? A creak, structural settling or movement. He glanced back. Ben was still preoccupied with the uplink. Elena watched the darkness ahead, chewing her lip. Chloe seemed to be concentrating on the quality of the silence itself. A sudden whisper, seemingly right beside Alex's ear. "Leave." He flinched, spinning around, light beams slashing across Elena and Chloe. They both jumped, startled. "What is it?" Elena asked, her eyes wide. "Did one of you say something?" Alex demanded, his heart hammering against his ribs. Elena shook her head quickly. Chloe frowned. "No, I thought you coughed." "No," Alex said, forcing his voice level. Heard a whisper, clear as day. Ben looked up from his device. "Acoustics down here are probably weird. Sound bouncing off concrete." "It wasn't an echo," Alex insisted. "It was right here." He felt a prickle of unease directed at Ben. Was he being deliberately obtuse, dismissing a potential threat? Marcus reappeared in the doorway. Rooms clear, stripped bare mostly. Some old log pages, waterlogged, nothing significant. He eyed Alex. "Problem." "Thought I heard something," Alex said evasively. "Let's keep moving." Marcus nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on Alex for a second longer than necessary before he turned back to the corridor. Did Marcus suspect him of jumpiness? The thought irritated Alex. He was the leader. He needed to maintain composure. They proceeded down the corridor, leapfrogging past the cleared office. The next doorway on the left was blocked by a partial collapse, buckled steel beams and fallen concrete slabs. Water pooled deep in the rubble. "Structural instability," Alex noted. "We bypassed that one. Mark it, Ben." Ben tagged the location on his offline map display. "Got it. Still no signal, by the way. Not even picking up standard surface radio chatter. We're completely isolated down here." The corridor continued, curving slightly to the right. Another doorway appeared on the left, heavy steel like the airlock doors but slightly ajar. Faded Cyrillic lettering stenciled on it read, "Svyazyeri, Communications." "Comms room," Elena translated unnecessarily. "Maybe we can find log schematics." "Maybe something still works," Ben added hopefully, perking up slightly. Marcus approached cautiously. He nudged the door open further with his boot. It swung inwards with a low groan. He swept his light inside. Racks of electronic equipment lined the walls, much of it smashed or violently ripped from its mountings. Thick cables snaked across the floor like dead pythons. Glass from broken monitors crunched underfoot. The destruction looked deliberate, methodical. "Looks like standard decommissioning protocol," Marcus observed, stepping inside. "Smash everything useful." "Or sabotage," Alex countered, following him in. The air inside smelled sharply of ozone and burnt insulation. He ran his light over a bank of radios, their faces shattered. Someone didn't want this equipment used again, or wanted to ensure nothing could be recovered. Elena moved towards a metal desk shoved against the far wall. Drawers hung open, contents spilled. She knelt, carefully sifting through soggy papers and rusted components with gloved hands. Shipping manifests, equipment repair logs, requisition forms, mostly mundane. Chloe stood near the doorway, microphone sweeping the room. There's a very faint residual charge sound near that main console bank. She pointed towards a large, scorched metal cabinet covered in dials and input jacks, like capacitors slowly discharging after decades. Ben was already there examining the damaged console. Main communication array controller. Looks like they took an axe to this one. He ran his fingers over a cracked screen. If there was an internal network, this might have been a hub. He tried prying open a side panel. Maybe the memory cores survived. As Ben struggled with the panel, Alex felt another wave of irrational irritation. The man was obsessed with technology, blind to the immediate situation. Ben, forget the consoles. Check for physical logs, anything paper. Ben stopped, looking surprised. But Apex, if I can access the logs. We don't have time, Alex snapped, louder than intended. The priority is assessing the immediate environment, not playing tech support on 70-year-old junk. Ben recoiled slightly, his expression hardening. Fine. He turned abruptly and started searching a pile of debris near the door. Elena looked up, frowning at Alex's outburst. Marcus watched silently from the corner, his expression unreadable. Chloe seemed oblivious, focused on the faint sounds only she could apparently hear properly. Alex felt a flush of embarrassment mixed with defensiveness. Why was he losing his temper? The silence, the whisper, the oppressive atmosphere. It was getting to him. Or was it something else? He glanced towards the damaged main console, where Chloe still stood listening intently. Was something emanating from that wreck? Anything useful, Elena? He asked, forcing a calmer tone. Elena shook her head, carefully placing a mildewed folder back down. Standard inventories mostly. Nothing about personnel, nothing about Sigma-7's specific function beyond signal interception. No mention of anomalies, she hesitated. There is one recurring project code mentioned in requisition forms for specialized acoustic dampening materials and high-gain amplifiers. PR Project Nightingale, Alex translated. Related to sound. Possibly, Elena agreed, but no details on what it entailed. A sudden, sharp clang echoed from the corridor outside, followed by the distinct skittering sound of something metallic rolling across the concrete. Everyone froze. What was that? Chloe whispered, eyes wide. Marcus was already moving, weapon up, back towards the comms room doorway. Alex followed suit, signaling the others to stay put. They peered cautiously out into the corridor. About 10 meters back towards the airlock, lying innocuously in the center of the floor, was one of Ben's spare battery packs for the sensors. It hadn't been there before. Ben, did you drop this? Alex asked, keeping his voice low. Ben came to the doorway, peering out. No, I secured all the spares in my side pack. He patted his hip pouch. It's still zipped. It wasn't there 2 minutes ago, Marcus stated, his eyes scanning the shadows near the ceiling and floor. Someone put it there. Or something, Alex thought, A distraction, a message. He felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He remembered the scraping sound, whatever made it was potentially mobile and silent. Could it have just rolled? Elena asked from behind them, her voice thin. Against the slight incline of the floor, and silently, Alex shook his head. No. The mimic, Chloe breathed almost inaudibly, making sounds, moving things. Mimic, Marcus questioned, glancing back at her. The frequency mimic, Alex clarified quickly. One of the potential threats I briefed you on. An entity hypothesized to manipulate sound, create auditory illusions. He hadn't expected to potentially encounter one so soon, or for it to be this bold. Marcus absorbed this with unnerving calm. So, we have an unknown hostile entity, possibly auditory-based, in a structure potentially designed for acoustic experiments, currently experiencing complete electromagnetic silence. He looked down the corridor. Excellent. We stick together, Alex ordered. No one goes anywhere alone. Ben, double-check your gear inventory, make sure nothing else is missing. Ben quickly did a mental checklist, patting his various pouches. Accounted for, just the battery pack. Leave it, Alex decided. Could be bait. We press on. Check rooms methodically. Find the central control or listening hub. That's likely where the answers are. They reformed their tight formation and continued down the corridor. The tension ratcheted up several notches. Every shadow seemed deeper, every distant drip of water potentially masking movement. Alex found himself glancing back frequently, half expecting to see the battery pack gone or something else left in its place. They passed another collapsed section, then a room marked M.Y.D.P.U.N.K.A.T. Medical Station. Marcus checked it quickly. Empty examination table, smashed cabinets, scattered medical supplies, bandages, empty vials, rusted instruments. Nothing of note. The corridor opened slightly into a wider junction area. 3 passages branched off, straight ahead, left and right. Directly ahead, a set of double doors, larger than the others, were emblazoned with the same Sigma 7 symbol seen at the entrance. This looks like a central hub, Alex guessed. Main control or listening room likely beyond those doors. Hold, Marcus said suddenly, holding up a fist. He pointed his light towards the floor near the entrance to the right-hand passage. Tracks. They gathered around. Clearly visible in a patch of damp dust were several overlapping boot prints. They were fresh. The tread pattern was heavy, military or tactical style, but distinct from Marcus's own boots and Alex's lighter hiking treads. Not ours, Ben stated unnecessarily. Size 10, maybe 11, Marcus estimated, kneeling for a closer look. Moving towards the right passage. Recent. Within the last hour, judging by the lack of dust settling. Elena gasped. Someone else is down here. Or was recently, Alex corrected, though his gut screamed is. He thought of the rumors Elena had mentioned, local tales of disappearances near the old Wire Way, whispers of a ghost haunting the woods above the bunker. He thought of the historian's missing grandfather, and he thought of the description of Dmitry Orlov, the ex-KGB agent Elena suspected might still be interested in places like this. Dmitry, he murmured to Elena. She nodded grimly. It's possible if he knew we were coming. Or if he's been down here all along, Marcus added, standing up. His gaze was sharp, calculating. This changes the threat assessment. We have a potential unknown human hostile plus Chloe's mimic, plus whatever shut this place down. A new layer of suspicion fell over the group. If someone else was down here, did they cause the silence? Did they leave the battery pack? Was the whisper Alex heard this other person? The uncertainty bred distrust. Alex found himself looking sideways at Marcus again. Could the stoic ex-soldier be hiding something? Was this Dmitri an associate? He mentally shook his head, trying to fight the insidious thought. This is what the engine does, he reminded himself, clinging to the hypothesis. It breeds paranoia. Okay, Alex said, making a decision. We need to know if we're being stalked or herded. Marcus, Ben, with me. We do a quick sweep down the right passage. 10 meters in, check for immediate threats, then back. Alina, Chloe, stay here. Keep watch on the main doors and the left passage. Radio silence unless emergency. Marcus nodded. Ben looked uneasy but complied. Alex gave Alina the heavier backup flashlight. Don't hesitate to use it as a club if needed. She offered a shaky smile. Understood. Alex, Marcus, and Ben moved into the right-hand passage. It was narrower, utilitarian, lined with pipes and conduits. It smelled strongly of mildew. Their lights cut through the oppressive darkness. 10 meters in, the passage curved sharply left. No immediate sign of anyone. Clear for now, Marcus whispered. Passage continues. Okay, back to the junction, Alex ordered quietly. As they turned, Ben stumbled slightly, his hand brushing against a large conduit running along the wall. A low, guttural growl seemed to emanate from the pipe itself, vibrating through the metal. All three froze, light snapping towards the sound source. The growling stopped instantly. What the hell was that? Ben breathed, snatching his hand away. Sounded like an animal, Alex ventured, though it felt deeper, more resonant than any animal he knew. Marcus placed a hand gently on the conduit. He tilted his head, listening. Nothing now. He rapped his knuckles lightly on the thick metal. Only a dull thud answered. Solid pipe, thick walls. Maybe just resonance, Ben suggested weakly. Air pressure change. Alex didn't believe it. The sound had felt too deliberate, too menacing, like a warning. Let's go. They hurried back to the junction. Alina and Chloe were huddled together, watching the main double doors intently. Anything? Alex asked. Alina shook her head. Quiet, too quiet. Chloe spoke up, her voice strained. While you were gone, I heard something from behind the main doors, like tapping, fingernails on metal. Alex exchanged a look with Marcus. Tapping, scraping, whispers, growls, disappearing hums, boot prints. This place was a symphony of wrongness. He focused on the main double doors. Time to face whatever lay beyond them. All right, Marcus, Ben, let's get these open. Alina, Chloe, stay alert. The doors lacked external handles or keypads. A magnetic locking system, likely. Alex inspected the frame. Should be an emergency release nearby. He scanned the walls. Nothing obvious. Ben pointed to a panel high on the wall, near the ceiling junction. Access panel could house the manual override wiring or mechanism. Too high to reach easily, Alex said. Marcus, can you? Wait, Chloe interrupted, her hand clamped over her mouth, eyes wide with horror, staring at the seam between the double doors. Look. Alex followed her gaze. A thick, dark, viscous fluid, almost black, was slowly seeping from under the bottom edge of the right-hand door. It pooled sluggishly on the concrete floor, gleaming wetly in their lights. It looked disturbingly like old, congealed blood, but somehow thicker, more tar-like. As they watched, another drop oozed out, adding to the small, spreading puddle. The silence returned, amplifying the soft, wet sound of the seepage. Chapter 3: Nightingale's Cave. The black ooze pulsed sluggishly from beneath the heavy steel door, a thick, semi-liquid extrusion that absorbed the light. It didn't reflect their beams like water or oil. It seemed to swallow the photons, leaving only a greasy, dark sheen. The smell hit them next to faint but deeply unpleasant, a coppery, metallic tang mixed with something acrid, like burnt wiring and decay. Sweet mother, Ben breathed, taking an involuntary step back. He raised his scanner instinctively, then remembered its uselessness. What is that stuff? Looks like hydraulic fluid mixed with something organic, Marcus offered, his voice tight. He kept his weapon trained on the door, not the puddle, or decomposition runoff, pipe rupture inside. Elena stared, horrified. It looks like... She couldn't finish the sentence. Alex forced himself forward, crouching near the edge of the slowly spreading puddle, careful not to touch it. The smell was stronger here, catching in the back of his throat. It wasn't precisely blood, but it carried that same visceral wrongness. He shone his light directly onto the seepage point. The fluid welled up slowly, steadily, from the tight seam between the door bottom and the concrete floor. No obvious pipe nearby. It seemed to be coming from inside whatever room lay beyond. Chloe, Alex asked without looking back, any sound from in there now? Chloe shook her head, her face pale and beaded with sweat despite the bunker's chill. No tapping, nothing, just pressure, like the silence is getting louder. She swayed slightly, leaning a hand against the rough concrete wall. Alex stood up. Okay, whatever that is, it's coming from the room we need to access. Ben, can you get a sample, carefully? Ben nodded, unclipping a sterile collection kit from his pack, sample vial, pipette, sealing tape. He approached the puddle hesitantly, wrinkling his nose at the smell. Anyone got any Vicks or ammonia caps? No one did. He knelt, extending the pipette carefully towards the thickest part of the ooze. The substance clung viscously, drawing out in a thick, dark strand before separating and sluggishly filling the pipette. Ben emptied it into the vial, sealed it tightly, wiped the pipette clean, and bagged everything meticulously. Can't run spectrometry down here, Ben said, standing and backing away from the puddle. But I can check basic pH and reactivity later if I can rig a power source for the portable tester. He tucked the sample kit safely away. Visually, high viscosity, appears non-Newtonian, contains particulates. Looks like old, contaminated lubricant mixed with something that congealed. Or worse, Elena muttered darkly. We still need to get through, Alex stated, turning his attention back to the doors and the access panel high on the wall above them. Marcus, give me a boost. Let's see what's in that panel. Marcus holstered his sidearm but kept his carbine slung across his chest. He moved to the wall beneath the panel, planting his feet firmly. Ready. Alex stepped into Marcus's clasped hands. With a grunt of effort, Marcus straightened, lifting Alex upwards. The panel was still a stretch. Alex reached, fingers scrabbling against the cold metal. His flashlight beam, clenched in his teeth, wobbled precariously. Higher, Alex grunted. Marcus pushed upwards, muscles straining. Alex's fingers found the recessed latch on the panel cover. He flipped it open. The metal door swung down on a hinge, revealing a cramped space filled with bundled wires, junction blocks, and what looked like a manual override lever. A simple T-bar handle painted faded yellow. "Got it," Alex called down. "Manual release lever." "Can you reach it?" Ben asked anxiously. "Just," Alex strained, hooking his fingers around the cold metal T-bar. It felt stiff, unused for decades. He braced himself against the wall, took a deep breath and pulled hard. Rust and dust showered down. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deep, resonant clunk that echoed alarmingly in the vast silence, heavy locking bolts within the double doors audibly retracted. Simultaneously, a sound erupted from behind Alex, down the narrow right-hand passage they had briefly explored earlier. It was a wet, choked gurgle, followed by frantic scrabbling, like claws on concrete. "Contact right," Marcus snapped, instantly dropping Alex, who landed heavily but managed to roll and bringing his carbine up, light fixed on the passage entrance. Ben and Alina spun, lights joining Marcus. Chloe cried out, stumbling back against the wall near the oozing doors. The scrabbling intensified for a second, then abruptly stopped. Silence crashed back down. Nothing emerged from the passage. "What was that?" Alina whispered, breathing heavily. "Sounded like," Ben started, then stopped, shaking his head. "Nothing natural." Marcus didn't relax his stance. "Stay alert. Could be the mimic trying to distract us, or it could be our friend Dimitri having problems." He spared a glance at Alex, who was picking himself up, brushing dust off his gear. "You okay, Apex?" "Fine," Alex grunted, though his ankle throbbed from the landing. He glared towards the passage entrance. Was it the mimic? Or was Dimitri setting traps, creating diversions? The uncertainty gnawed at him. He pushed the thought away. "The door bolts are retracted. Let's get inside. Now." He and Marcus put their shoulders to the heavy steel doors. They resisted for a moment, suction or pressure holding them, then groaned inwards, opening onto utter blackness. The smell intensified: copper, ozone, decay, and something else. A faint, sickly sweet undertone, like overripe fruit left to rot. Their combined lights pierced the void, revealing a vast, cavernous room. This was clearly the heart of Sigma-7. Banks upon banks of electronic consoles filled the space, arranged in concentric rings facing a central command platform. Most screens were dark, shattered. Equipment lay overturned, cables torn from sockets. The same deliberate destruction seen in the comms room was amplified here tenfold. Dust lay thick as snowfall on every horizontal surface. But dominating the center, on the raised platform, was not just a command chair. but a complex apparatus unlike anything Alex recognized from standard Cold War installations. It resembled a heavily modified dentist's chair or medical restraint system, surrounded by an array of focused emitters, parabolic dishes, and intricate wiring, all aimed inwards at where a person's head would be. Thick cables snaked from this central device into the floor and towards the ruined consoles. Patches of the strange, dark ooze coated parts of this central machine and pooled on the platform beneath it, apparently dripping from cracked conduits or seals within the apparatus itself. Directly behind the central chair setup, a massive map display covered the far wall. It wasn't a standard world map. Instead, it showed complex topographical grids overlaid with patterns that looked like neurological pathways or intricate circuitry diagrams. Dozens of small lights dotted the map, all currently dark. Project Nightingale, Elena breathed, stepping slowly into the room, her light sweeping across the destruction. This must be it. Looks more like Project Nightmare, Ben muttered, his gaze fixed on the central chair. What in God's name is that thing? Chloe lingered near the doorway, unwilling to fully enter. She scanned the room with wide, fearful eyes. The silence. It feels different in here, heavier, like it's being generated. Marcus moved methodically, clearing the immediate area around the doorway, his light probing the shadowed corners between console banks. Room appears clear of immediate threats, multiple auxiliary doors visible leading off this main chamber. Alex advanced towards the central platform drawn by the bizarre chair. The sickly sweet smell was stronger here. He shone his light on the ooze coating the machine. It wasn't just dripping. In places, it seemed to have hardened, forming grotesque, almost organic-looking lumps. Embedded within one dark, solidified mass near the headrest, something glinted. Alex leaned closer. It was a small, silver object. Using the tip of a pry bar, he carefully chipped away the brittle crust. A tarnished silver locket, identical to the one Elena wore, fell onto the platform with a soft clink. Elena gasped, rushing forward. No, it can't be. She snatched it up, her fingers trembling as she fumbled with the clasp. It opened. Inside, faded and water-damaged, were two tiny photographs, a young Elena and the smiling, uniformed man she identified as her grandfather. He was here, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. He sat in this thing. Alex felt a chill that had nothing to do with the bunker's temperature. He looked from the locket to the horrifying chair, then to the ruined consoles. This wasn't just a listening post. It was something else, something deeply disturbing. Ben had cautiously approached one of the less damaged console banks, running his light over input panels and data ports. Incredible technology for the era. Much of this looks bespoke, experimental. High-energy capacitors, psychoacoustic modulators. This ties into the comms array, but it's designed to do more than just listen. He pointed towards the central chair. It looks like they were trying to interface directly with an operator, a biological interface. To do what? Alex asked grimly. Amplify psychic signals, broadcast suggestion, or, Ben trailed off, looking towards the map display. Maybe map something. Those patterns don't look geographical. While they were focused on the central platform, Marcus continued his sweep along the room's perimeter. He paused near a doorway marked A Archaea Archive. Unlike the others, this door was slightly buckled outwards, the frame warped. He pushed it open carefully. Inside was a small room lined with empty shelves and overturned filing cabinets. Papers were scattered everywhere, many reduced to pulp by dampness. But something else lay on the floor, partially obscured by debris. Marcus's beam tightened on it. "Apex," Marcus called, his voice low and urgent. "You need to see this." Alex and Alina, followed by Ben, hurried over. Chloe remained near the main entrance, seemingly rooted to the spot. Marcus shone his light on the object. It was a human skeleton, clad in the tattered remnants of a Soviet-era military uniform. It lay sprawled near the buckled door, as if thrown there by immense force from inside the archive room. The skull was shattered, ribs crushed, but it wasn't the skeleton itself that was most disturbing. Growing out of the bone, particularly around the skull fragments and ribcage, were hard, black, crystalline structures that looked unnervingly like the solidified ooze found on the Nightingale chair. The skeleton seemed to be partially encased, integrated with the dark, unnatural substance. "My God," Alina breathed, recoiling. Ben knelt, careful not to touch anything. The force needed to buckle that steel door outwards. And this, crystallization, it's not decomposition. Alex stared at the horrifying tableau. A violent death, unnatural growth, connected to the ooze, connected to the chair. He looked back at the central apparatus. This place wasn't just listening, it was experimenting, changing things, violently. Suddenly, from the main part of the control room, Chloe screamed, a short, sharp cry of absolute terror. They spun around, lights finding her instantly. She was standing exactly where they left her, near the main entrance, but she was pointing frantically towards the high ceiling, her face chalk white. "It's there, up there," she stammered. Their lights shot upwards, probing the darkness above the consoles, searching the web of cables, ventilation ducts, and structural beams crisscrossing the high ceiling. At first, they saw nothing but shadows and decay. Then Ben's light caught movement. High above the central Nightingale chair, clinging upside down to a thick conduit like some grotesque parody of a sloth, was a figure. It was humanoid in shape but unnaturally thin, limbs elongated and spidery. Its skin, or perhaps covering, was the color of mottled gray concrete, blending almost perfectly with the bunker ceiling. It remained utterly still once the lights hit it, only its head swiveling slowly, soundlessly to face them. It had no discernible features. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just a smooth, tapering surface. "What is that?" Ben whispered, horrified. Marcus raised his carbine, centering the integrated laser sight on the figure's torso. Subject acquired. Hostile intent unknown. The creature didn't react to the laser. It simply hung there, watching them with featureless sight. The silence in the room deepened, becoming almost painful. Alex felt the familiar, irrational prickle of suspicion. How had it gotten up there? Why hadn't Marcus spotted it during his initial sweep? Was the ex-soldier holding back? Or was this another trick of the light, a hallucination brought on by the engine? But Chloe saw it too. And Ben and Alina, who was backing away slowly towards the archive room door, her eyes fixed on the ceiling horror. Get it together, Apex, he told himself fiercely. This is real. Hold fire, Marcus, Alex commanded, his voice hoarse. Let's see what it does. As if responding to his words, the figure began to move. Not quickly, but with a slow, deliberate unfolding of its limbs. It shifted its grip on the conduit, its gray skin seeming to ripple. And then it spoke. But the sound didn't come from its featureless head. It emanated from the air around it, a perfect mimicry of Alina's voice, laced with terror. It's inside my head. Grandfather, help me. Make it stop. Elena cried out, stumbling back against the archive doorframe. No, that's not me. Then the voice shifted, becoming Ben's, tight with panic. The readings off the charts, it's rewriting protocols. Ben flinched as if struck. I never said that. The voice morphed again into Marcus's flat, calm tone. Target identified. Eliminate the primary threat. Apex is compromised. Marcus didn't move, but Alex saw his knuckles tighten on the carbine's grip. A muscle feathered in his jaw. Finally, the voice became Alex's own, filled with a desperate edge he didn't recognize. Leave me. Get out. It wants us to turn. Can't trust. The voice cut off abruptly. The creature tilted its head, seemingly observing their reactions. The mimic. Not just sounds, but voices. Perfect, terrifying mimicry designed to sow maximum discord. Alex felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with cold dread. This thing was actively weaponizing their fears, their burgeoning paranoia. It was feeding the engine, or working in concert with it. Marcus, Alex said, keeping his voice level, fighting the suspicion the mimicry had planted. On my mark, aim for center mass, controlled bursts. Marcus nodded curtly, laser sight steady on the creature's torso. Elena, Ben, get behind cover those console banks, Alex ordered. Elena scrambled behind a sturdy metal console. Ben hesitated, looking wildly from the creature to the central chair, then dove behind another bank near Elena. Chloe remained frozen near the main entrance. Chloe, move, Alex yelled. Chloe didn't respond, her gaze fixed upwards, her mouth working silently. The creature unfolded another limb, detaching one hand-like appendage from the conduit. It seemed to be preparing to descend. Now, Marcus, Alex commanded. Marcus squeezed the trigger. The carbine erupted, the roar of the shots deafening in the enclosed space, brutally shattering the oppressive silence. Brass casings ejected, glinting in the flashlight beams. The bullet struck the creature's torso with meaty thuds. The figure convulsed, its gray skin puckering around the impact points, but no blood sprayed. It didn't fall. Instead, it retracted its limbs rapidly, pulling itself higher into the shadowed recesses of the ceiling near a large ventilation grate, moving with uncanny speed and silence. Marcus fired another burst, chewing up the concrete and metal around where the creature had been, but it was gone, vanished into the darkness above. Silence slammed back down, broken only by the ringing in their ears and Chloe's ragged, gasping near the door. Status, Alex yelled, sweeping his light across the ceiling. Nothing. Clear, Marcus reported, reloading with swift, economical movements. No blood trail. Impacts registered but penetration depth uncertain. Things tough. Or not entirely physical, Ben added shakily from behind his console. Alex moved towards Chloe. She was hyperventilating, pointing towards the main entrance doors they'd come through. It wasn't just up there, she choked out between gasps. When it spoke, with your voices, there was someone behind the doors, listening. Alex froze. He spun back towards the entrance. The heavy steel doors stood slightly ajar just as they'd left them. The corridor beyond was swallowed in darkness. Was Dmitri Orlov out there, observing them, perhaps even directing the mimic? Or was this just Chloe's terror, amplified by the engine, creating phantom listeners? He didn't know. And in this place, not knowing was the most dangerous thing of all. The creature was wounded, hiding. The ooze still seeped from the machine. A skeleton lay encased in black crystal in the next room, and someone or something might be listening from the darkness behind them, waiting. Chapter 4: The Black Dossier. The echoes of Marcus's shots faded, swallowed by the oppressive, dead air of the control room. Chloe continued to gasp near the main doors, her eyes wide with terror, fixed on the dark corridor beyond. Alex moved towards her, keeping his own light trained on the shadowed ceiling where the mimic had vanished. "Chloe, breathe," Alex said, trying to project calm he didn't feel. "Tell me exactly what you heard. Someone behind the doors." She nodded jerkily, struggling to control her breathing. Not heard, sensed, like standing close when it used your voices. There was a presence, right outside, listening, cold. She shuddered violently. Alex exchanged a look with Marcus, who had finished reloading and was now scanning the upper gantries and ventilation grates near the ceiling. Marcus gave a slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head. He hadn't seen or heard anything outside. Was Chloe hallucinating? A panic reaction amplified by the mimic's attack and the oppressive atmosphere? Or was her sensitivity picking up something the others missed? If Orlov was out there, listening, assessing their capabilities after the firefight, that was bad, very bad. All right, Alex made a decision. The immediate threat was the mimic potentially returning or Orlov exploiting the chaos. We secure this room. Now, Marcus, Ben, get those main doors shut and see if there's any way to physically bar them from this side. Anything. Overturned consoles, pry bars wedged in the frame. Marcus nodded. Understood. He moved towards the heavy steel doors. Ben hesitated, glancing towards the intriguing, horrifying nightingale chair, then followed Marcus. "Elena," Alex continued, turning to her. She had emerged from behind the console bank, still pale but composed. "We need to know what happened here. You and I check the archive room. Find anything that explains Project Nightingale, that skeleton, the ooze." Elena nodded, her gaze determined despite the fear in her eyes. "My grandfather, he might have left something." "Chloe," Alex said gently but firmly, "stay near the center of the room. Watch the ceiling, watch the other doors. Shout if you see anything. Can you do that?" Chloe swallowed hard, pulling her arms tightly around herself. She looked fragile, on the verge of breaking, but she nodded. I can try." She positioned herself near the central platform, her light sweeping nervously across the shadowed upper reaches of the vast chamber. Alex and Alina moved towards the archive room doorway, stepping around the grotesque skeleton lying just inside. The smell of decay and the strange coppery tang was stronger here. The room itself was small, maybe 4 meters square, the devastation absolute. Filing cabinets ripped open, shelves torn from walls, papers everywhere, churned into a mulch of mildew and dampness on the floor. The outward buckle on the steel door was severe. Whatever force erupted from inside this room was immense. "Check the cabinets first," Alex directed, sweeping his light over the wreckage. "Look for anything sealed, anything that might have survived the damp." They began sifting carefully through the debris. Most papers disintegrated at a touch. Metal filing drawers were bent and empty. Alina ran her gloved hand along a torn section of wall paneling. "Reinforced walls," she noted. "Like a vault. What were they keeping in here?" Alex knelt, examining the skeleton again. The black crystalline substance wasn't merely coating the bones. It seemed fused with them, growing through the porous structure in sharp, obsidian-like shards. It pulsed with a faint, internal darkness that seemed to absorb his flashlight beam. He touched a shard cautiously with a gloved finger. It was hard, smooth, and unnaturally cold. "This isn't natural crystallization," Alex murmured. "It looks manufactured or weaponized." He thought of the nightingale chair, the ooze. Was this the end result of exposure? Alina found a heavy-duty metal footlocker shoved under a collapsed shelving unit. It was dented but appeared sealed. "Alex, here." Together they dragged it out. It was surprisingly heavy. Standard military issue, painted olive drab with Cyrillic stenciling faded on the lid. The latches were rusted but intact. Alex used a pry bar. With a screech of protesting metal, the latches gave way. He lifted the lid. Inside, miraculously preserved by a rubber gasket seal, were several thick binders, a few reels of magnetic tape, and a strange object. A heavy, dark glass cylinder, about 30 centimeters long, capped at both ends with metal, filled with the same black, viscous ooze they'd seen outside and on the nightingale chair. The fluid inside shifted sluggishly as Alex lifted the cylinder. It felt cold, almost vibrating in his hands. "Careful," Alina warned. "We don't know what that stuff is." Alex placed the cylinder carefully back in the locker and picked up the top binder. The label read, "Per oyekeates olveyekratkoi. Etea pe ii oteche yete yeru o pe yer ete o erove, Project Nightingale. Stage III operator reports." He opened it. The pages were filled with dense, typewritten Russian text, interspersed with complex diagrams, EKG readouts, and brainwave activity charts. Dates ranged from the late 1960s into the early 1970s. They were session logs, detailing operators subjected to the Nightingale chair. Alina took another binder. "Te yekaen iche yeske yeka erake te yer iesterikia. Ueste eroikratkoi este veon solveyekratkoi." Technical specifications. Nightingale device. She flipped through pages showing intricate schematics of the chair and its associated emitters, referencing exotic materials and energy sources Alex didn't recognize. Back in the main room, Marcus and Ben had managed to heave the heavy steel doors almost fully closed. The warped frame prevented a perfect seal. "Best we can do without welding gear," Marcus reported, jamming the end of a heavy pry bar between the door handle mechanism and the reinforced frame. "It'll slow someone down, maybe give us noise warning if they try forcing it." Ben was examining the door's internal locking mechanism. Power lines are severed clean, but there might be a manual bolt throw inside this panel. He indicated an access plate near the hinges. "Requires tools I don't have readily available without setting up shop." "Leave it for now," Alex called back from the archive doorway. "We found something." Marcus and Ben came over, peering into the archive room. Ben's eyes widened at the sight of the footlocker's contents, particularly the cylinder of ooze. "Is that?" Ben started. "Looks like it," Alex confirmed grimly. He handed the operator report's binder to Alina, whose Russian was fluent. "Alina, see what you can make of these logs, quickly. Look for mentions of side effects, incidents, anything unusual." He took the technical specifications binder himself. Hopping the diagrams might offer clues even without understanding all the text. Marcus watched the main room, occasionally glancing back towards the corridor entrance. Ben picked up one of the magnetic tape reels. "Standard quarter-inch audio tape," Ben identified. "If I can find a working deck and power." Alina scanned the operator logs, her expression growing increasingly disturbed. They started with volunteers, trained psychics, radio operators with high sensitivity. They were trying to amplify telepathic communication, project thoughts over vast distances using VLF frequencies. She flipped a page. Early results were inconsistent. Headaches, nosebleeds, temporary paranoia. Alex studied a diagram of the Nightingale chair's emitters. They seemed designed to focus multiple energy beams: acoustic, electromagnetic, perhaps something else entirely, directly into the operator's brainstem and frontal lobe. Stage II involved. Involuntary subjects, Alina continued, her voice lower. Political prisoners captured spies. The intensity increased. Reports mentioned sensory hallucinations, extreme aggression, personality fragmentation. Her breath hitched. This entry, Operator 7. Subject exhibited uncontrolled acoustic mimicry and spontaneous bioluminescence before suffering catastrophic neural collapse. Alex looked up sharply. Acoustic mimicry, the creature in the ceiling. "Keep reading," Alex urged. Alina turned another page, her hand trembling slightly. Stage III, they introduced an external agent, referred to only as the black fluid. She looked towards the cylinder in the footlocker. Administered intravenously or via direct cranial injection. Ben, who had been examining the cylinder speculatively, quickly put it down. "The logs become fragmented here," Alina said, her voice strained. "Operators exposed to the black fluid showed dramatically amplified psychic projection, but with severe biological consequences. Accelerated metabolism, tissue regeneration bordering on mutation, extreme light sensitivity." She paused, reading intently. "And auditory projection manifesting as autonomous psychic echo. They called the entity the listener." Alex felt ice crawl up his spine. The listener, the entity born from the station's purpose, was the mimic creature a physical manifestation of it, or just one symptom? This report, Elena pointed, her finger shaking. Operator 12, my grandfather's service number, she read aloud, translating haltingly. Operator 12 exhibits unprecedented broadcast range and signal clarity post-infusion, able to imprint thoughts onto susceptible minds at estimated 5 km radius. However, displays increasing paranoia, auditory hallucinations numbing Dimitri, violent rejection of containment protocols, requests termination of experiment. Request denied, signed by Major K. Volkov. Alex froze. Volkov, any relation? It couldn't be, a common name, but the coincidence here now felt sickening. Elena looked up at Alex, her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and dawning suspicion. Volkov, you're... No, Alex said quickly, perhaps too quickly. No relation, common name. But the seed was planted. Could his family have some unknown connection to this nightmare? Was his Urbex's obsession driven by something deeper, something subconscious drawing him here? He shoved the thought down violently. Paranoia. The engine. Before Elena could press further, Ben let out a sharp hiss of indrawn breath. He was examining the archive room's buckled door again, specifically the area around the shattered skeleton. Alex, look at this. Alex moved closer. Ben pointed to the concrete floor near the skeleton's feet, partially hidden under debris. Scratched crudely into the surface as if by a fingernail or a sharp piece of metal were letters. ARL AVPRYDATL ORLOVPREDATEL. Orlov traitor, Elena translated numbly. So Orlov was here, Alex stated, and whoever this poor bastard was, he gestured to the skeleton, blamed him for this. He looked at the black crystalline shards fused to the bones. Maybe Orlov triggered the event, Ben theorized, released the black fluid, sabotaged the Nightingale device. Or maybe he was trying to stop it, Elena countered, her expression conflicted. The logs mentioned Operator 12's paranoia focusing on someone named Dimitri. Was it the Dimitri Orlov, a colleague, a handler? Marcus spoke from the doorway, his voice calm but cutting through the speculation. Movement, upper gantry, Sector 4. They instantly snapped back to the present danger. Alex and Elena hurried out of the archive, Ben closed behind. They joined Marcus and Chloe. Lights trained on the shadowed network of pipes and walkways high above the consoles on the far side of the room. Nothing moved now. Saw it for a second, Marcus reported. Gray shape, same as before, moving fast towards the ventilation shaft. It's probing, Alex surmised, testing defenses, looking for a way back down. Or trying to draw us out, Marcus added. A low scraping sound echoed from the main corridor, beyond the barricaded doors. Faint but unmistakable. Chloe flinched, pressing back against a console bank. He's still out there. Or it is, Ben corrected nervously, glancing between the doors and the ceiling. The mimic. Alex felt trapped. The mimic above, Orlov, or something mimicking him, outside. A room full of potentially dangerous technology, and the insidious paranoia creeping into his own thoughts, fueled by the revelation of the name Volkov in the logs. He needed to regain control. "Ben," Alex ordered, thinking fast. "That nightingale chair. The ooze seems connected to it, to the skeleton, maybe the mimic. Is there any way to analyze that device? Any residual power, any local logs?" Ben looked hesitant. "Apex messing with that thing seems unwise, given what we just read." "We need to understand it," Alex insisted, the irrational irritation flaring again. "How it works, how to counteract it, maybe how to shut it down. If it's amplifying paranoia, maybe it's the engine or connected to it." "There might be a diagnostic port," Ben conceded reluctantly. "Possibly an internal battery backup for core memory, separate from the main power grid that's down. If I can interface with my tablet." "Do it," Alex commanded. "But carefully. Marcus, cover Ben. Alina, keep scanning those logs, look for shutdown procedures, weaknesses, anything referencing the black fluid containment or reversal." Alex turned his attention back to the barricaded main doors. The scraping had stopped. Was Orlov testing the barricade, or had he moved on? He swept his light across the other sealed doors leading off the main chamber. Where did they lead? Barracks, labs, storage, more potential hiding places for the mimic or entry points for Orlov. Ben cautiously approached the nightingale chair, wrinkling his nose at the smell. He wiped away some of the ooze near the base with a rag, revealing a small access panel. Marcus stood nearby, carbine ready, dividing his attention between Ben and the shadowed ceiling. Alina sat on the floor near the archive entrance, poring over the operator logs under her flashlight beam. Chloe remained huddled, watching everything with wide eyes. Alex felt a growing sense of dread. They were learning things, yes, but each answer seemed to spawn more terrifying questions. The black fluid, the listener, the crystalline mutations, Orlov the traitor, the Volkov connection. It was too much, too fast. He needed a plan, a way out. But first, they needed to understand the machine at the heart of it all. Ben managed to pry open the access panel on the chair. Inside was a tangle of wires, circuit boards coated in conformal sealant, and what looked like a shielded data port, old but recognizable. "Got a connection point," Ben reported, pulling a cable and adapter from his kit. "Soviet military spec, but I have an interface." He carefully plugged the cable into the port and connected the other end to his ruggedized tablet. He tapped commands onto the screen, trying to establish handshake, checking for residual power to the core processor. The tablet screen flickered. Lines of Cyrillic text scrolled rapidly, too fast to read. "Whoa," Ben breathed. "There's power. Internal battery backup is live, accessing root directory." Suddenly, a loud click echoed through the control room, seemingly from the nightingale chair itself. The lights on Ben's tablet flickered wildly. A low hum started up, emanating from the chair, vibrating through the floor. The dark ooze on the chair seemed to quiver. On the massive, dead map display covering the far wall, a single small light flickered on. A tiny red pinpoint in a sector labeled Biolab Gamma. "Ben, what did you do?" Alex shouted, raising his light towards the chair. "Nothing, just access the directory." Ben yelled back, trying to disconnect the cable, but his hands were shaking. The hum intensified, rising in pitch. The air crackled with static electricity. Hair lifted on Alex's arms. Then from the archive room behind Alex and Alina came a horrific, wet, tearing sound, followed by a low, ragged groan. Chapter 5: Biolab Gamma's Calling. The wet, tearing sound from the archive room, followed by that low, guttural groan, froze Alex mid-stride. It was a sound intimately organic and fundamentally wrong, like sinew ripping from bone, amplified in the dead air. Alina cried out, scrambling back from the archive doorway. Ben fumbled desperately with the cable connecting his tablet to the humming nightingale chair, his face slick with sweat. The single red light on the wall map pulsed faintly, casting an ominous glow on the dusty consoles below. "Marcus with me," Alex snapped, overriding the instinct to recoil. He brought his own weapon up, light beam stabbing towards the archive entrance. "Alina, Ben, stay back. Chloe, report." "And nothing," Chloe stammered from the center of the room, her voice thin and reedy. Her light jittered wildly across the ceiling, then the main doors, then back to the ceiling. Just the chair, humming louder. Marcus moved with deadly fluidity, flanking the archive doorway opposite Alex. They paused, listening. Silence again, thick and expectant. The groan did not repeat. Only the rising hum of the central chair filled the void. "Clear the doorway," Alex ordered quietly. He counted down silently with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. They burst into the small room simultaneously, lights crisscrossing, weapons ready. The first thing Alex registered was the skeleton. It was no longer sprawled where they'd left it. It had been dragged, scraped sideways across the concrete floor by about half a meter, leaving gouges in the grime. One skeletal arm was now outstretched towards the back of the room, bony fingers ending mere centimeters from a large, overturned filing cabinet shoved against the rear wall. The black crystalline structures embedded in the bones seemed darker, slicker, pulsing with a faint internal rhythm that matched the hum of the nightingale chair. The tearing sound. It hadn't been the skeleton reanimating. It had been the sound of those crystalline shards, fused to bone and concrete, being ripped free as the body was dragged. It moved, Alex breathed, disbelief warring with horror. Something moved it. Marcus didn't reply. His light was fixed on the gap between the heavy, overturned filing cabinet and the back wall, a space plunged into deep shadow. He took a cautious step forward. A low growl rumbled from that shadowed gap, deeper than the sound they'd heard in the corridor conduit earlier. This was wet, guttural, filled with undiluted menace. "Hostile contact," Marcus stated calmly, his carbine unwavering. "Unknown classification, confined space." Alex flicked his light beam into the gap. He caught a glimpse of something shifting, something pale and slick reflecting the light before retreating deeper into the shadows. He couldn't make out a shape. Whatever it is, it moved the body. Why? Maybe it needed. Alina started from the doorway, her eyes wide as she stared at the displaced skeleton. A component. She held up the operator log binder. This entry, stage III failure, operator 9. Subject underwent uncontrolled osteocrystalline conversion. Body became rigid, unresponsive, but emitted persistent low-level psychic broadcast. They couldn't terminate the connection to the chair. Log says they contain the remains in Archive Gamma adjacent. She gestured around the room. This must be it. The skeleton is part of the network. And whatever's back there, Alex gestured towards the growling shadow, wanted to disconnect it or use it. The growling intensified, morphing into a series of wet, choked clicks. "Ben," Alex yelled back towards the main room. "Shut that chair down, disconnect." "I'm trying," Ben shouted back, his voice strained. "It's resisting. The system's fighting me. Energy levels are spiking." The hum from the chair climbed higher, vibrating painfully in Alex's teeth. The red light on the map display pulsed faster, brighter. "Fall back," Alex ordered Marcus. "Seal this room if we can." Marcus needed no convincing. He backed out of the archive room smoothly, keeping his weapon trained on the shadowed gap. Alex followed, pulling the heavy, buckled steel door closed as much as the warped frame allowed. It scraped shut with a tortured groan, leaving a gap of several centimeters. The growling from inside abruptly stopped. They were back in the main control room. The air felt thick, charged with energy emanating from the Nightingale chair. The hum was a physical pressure now, making concentration difficult. Alex felt a headache blooming behind his eyes and a familiar, ugly surge of suspicion towards Ben. Why couldn't the tech expert just pull the plug? Was he incompetent? Or was he somehow involved, deliberately keeping the machine active? He fought the thought down. Engine. "Status, Ben," Alex demanded, striding towards the central platform. Ben frantically typed on his tablet, sweat dripping onto the screen. "Core temperature rising. Energy discharge imminent. It's locked me out of the primary disconnect command. Something else is controlling it." He pointed a trembling finger at the pulsing red light on the map display. "That Biolab signal. It's sending instructions to the chair." "Biolab Gamma," Alina breathed, scanning the logs again. "Synthesis site for the black fluid and, oh God, containment facility for non-viable stage III assets. Assets." "Failed experiments," Alex clarified grimly. "Like the thing in the archive room." He looked at the pulsing red light, then back at the barricaded main doors, then towards the ceiling. Trapped between multiple threats, with the central machine about to overload or discharge, instructed by another part of the facility. "Can you cut the physical power cable to the chair?" Ben followed thick, shielded cables running from the chair base into a floor conduit. Main power conduit was severed during decommissioning. It's running solely off that internal battery and whatever energy it's drawing psychically or otherwise. He frantically unplugged the interface cable from his tablet. "My direct link is cut, but it's still accelerating." The hum peaked, shifting into a high-frequency whine that made their ears ache. The lights flickered overhead. Dust sifted down from the ceiling. The black ooze on the Nightingale chair began to bubble slowly, releasing thin wisps of acrid smoke. "It's going critical," Ben yelled, backing away from the platform. Suddenly the whine cut off. Silence slammed back in, even more profound than before. The bubbling ooze subsided. The red light on the map display stopped pulsing and shone with a steady, intense brilliance. But the silence wasn't empty. Beneath it, almost subliminal, Alex felt a pressure, a focused mental static directed outwards from the now silent chair. It wasn't sound, it was intent, directed. He felt a specific instruction worming its way into his thoughts, bypassing reason. Go to Biolab Gamma, the source, the answer. He saw Ben shaking his head, eyes squeezed shut. Elena clutched her temples, groaning. Chloe whimpered, curling into a ball near the consoles. Only Marcus seemed unaffected, his face an impassive mask, though he scanned the room with heightened alertness. "Did you?" Alex started. "Feel it," Ben finished, nodding weakly. "A command, like a radio signal directly into my brain. Go to Gamma." "Me too," Elena confirmed, her voice strained. Strong, insistent. Alex looked at Marcus. "You." Marcus shook his head fractionally. "No command, just quiet." He tapped the side of his head. "Maybe old training helps, mental blocks." Or maybe, the insidious thought whispered in Alex's mind, Marcus was already aligned with whatever was broadcasting. "It's the chair," Alex stated, trying to project certainty. "Project Nightingale. It's not just amplifying thoughts, it's broadcasting commands, using the black fluid as an antenna maybe, and it wants us to go to the biolab." "Why?" Elena wondered aloud. "Lure us into a trap, gather more assets," she shuddered. "Or maybe the answer is there," Ben suggested, though he looked terrified by the prospect. "A way to shut it down permanently, the source of the black fluid, the primary control node." While they debated, Chloe, still curled up, let out a low moan. "Voices." "What voices, Chloe?" Alex asked, moving towards her. Not the mimic," she mumbled, hands pressed over her ears. "Whispers from the chair, from the walls, saying things." "What things?" Alex pressed gently. Chloe looked up, her eyes unfocused, filled with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Saying, Elena carries the key. Ben fears the machine. Marcus waits for the signal. Alex wears the traitor's name." Alex recoiled as if struck. The Volkov name again. The chair wasn't just broadcasting a command. It was amplifying their deepest fears and suspicions, pulling fragments from their minds and whispering them back. Weaponized paranoia generated by the machine at the heart of the bunker. The paranoia engine wasn't just the frequencies. It was this psychic broadcast, this targeted assault on their trust. He saw Elena looking at him, her expression unreadable but shadowed with doubt. He saw Ben glance nervously between Alex and Marcus. The whispers were working, fracturing them from within. "It's lying," Alex insisted, forcing conviction into his voice. "It's trying to divide us. Don't listen." "How do we know?" Ben shot back, fear making him defensive. "How do we know what's real down here? The whispers, the commands, the mimic, or love. Maybe even each other." "Enough!" Marcus's voice cut through the rising panic like a knife. All eyes turned to him. He stood solid, impassive, the anchor in their storm of fear. "The chair is broadcasting. It wants us to go to Biolab Gamma. The mimic is likely still active. Orlov may be outside. The creature in the archive is contained for now. These are the tactical realities. Debating the whispers is pointless. We have two options. Try to escape the way we came, facing Orlov and whatever else is out there, or proceed to Biolab Gamma as the chair suggests, hopping to find answers or a way to neutralize the source. He looked directly at Alex. Your call, Apex. Alex felt the weight of the decision, amplified by the psychic static pressing against his mind. Escape seemed impossible. They were deep underground, the entrance potentially watched, the route back potentially compromised by the mimic or traps. Biolab Gamma was an unknown horror, explicitly flagged by the hostile intelligence in the chair, but it might hold the key. Going towards the danger felt counterintuitive, possibly suicidal, yet the psychic command pulsed insistently. Gamma holds the answer. Was that the chair's true command, or his own desperate hope filtering through the static? He looked at his team. Elena, driven by her grandfather's fate, seemed resigned to pushing forward. Ben looked terrified but technologically curious about the biolab. Chloe was barely functional, lost in the whispers. Marcus was a rock, awaiting orders, but Alex couldn't shake the doubt the whispers had planted. Could he trust Marcus's impassivity? And himself. The Volkov name echoed in his mind. Traitor's name. Was he leading them into a trap because of some cursed legacy he didn't even understand? We go to Gamma, Alex heard himself say, the words feeling both foreign and inevitable. The chair is pushing us there for a reason. Maybe it's a trap. Maybe it's the only way to understand how to fight back. Staying here, waiting for the mimic to regroup or Orlov to break in, isn't an option. Elena nodded slowly. Ben swallowed hard but didn't object. Marcus gave a curt nod. Which way? He gestured towards the 3 remaining exits from the control room, excluding the main entrance and the archive. Alex consulted the map display. The steady red light indicating Biolab Gamma pulsed slightly, as if acknowledging his decision. Following the illuminated pathways and sector designations branching from their current location, central control, the route seemed clear. Take the left-hand passage from the main junction outside the control room, the one opposite the passage where they'd found Orlov's tracks. Follow it through Sector Delta, then take a secondary corridor labeled Biosupport Access into Sector Gamma. The left passage, Alex confirmed, pointing. According to the map, it leads through Sector Delta towards Gamma. Let's move, Marcus said, already heading towards the barricaded main doors to remove the pry bar. Quickly, before anything else changes its mind. Ben gathered his gear, casting one last fearful look at the silent, ominous nightingale chair. Elena helped Chloe to her feet. The sound artist seemed dazed but compliant. Alex took a deep breath, trying to ignore the persistent psychic static urging him towards Gamma, and the equally persistent whispers of doubt planted by the machine. Marcus wrenched the pry bar free. He pulled one of the heavy doors open just enough for them to slip through, carbine scanning the dark corridor outside. Clear for now. They exited the control room, leaving the silent chair and its pulsing red map light behind. The corridor felt colder, the silence somehow more menacing now that the chair's audible hum was gone, replaced by that insidious mental pressure. They moved towards the junction. As they reached the entrance to the left-hand passage, the route to Biolab Gamma, Marcus held up a hand, freezing them. His light beam was fixed on the floor just inside the passage entrance. More boot prints. identical to the ones they'd found earlier, the ones they attributed to Orlov. But these weren't heading away from the control room. They were heading into the passage, towards Biolab Gamma. "He's ahead of us," Marcus stated grimly, "or waiting for us along the way." The psychic static in Alex's head pulsed again. "Go to Gamma, now." Before Alex could react, a blood-curdling shriek echoed from behind them, from the control room they had just exited. It wasn't the mimic. It wasn't human. It was the sound of the creature from the archive room, amplified, filled with agony and rage. The buckled archive door slammed open with incredible force, metal screaming as it tore from its hinges. Chapter 6: The Traitor's Trail. The creature's shriek from the control room ripped through the relative quiet, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony and fury that scraped bone. The crash of the archive door tearing free echoed down the corridor, accompanied by a series of heavy, wet impacts, something large and enraged throwing itself against the consoles or walls within. "Move now," Alex yelled, shoving Alina and Chloe towards the left-hand passage entrance. There was no fighting that thing, not after Marcus's bullets barely phased the mimic, and there was no going back. They plunged into the narrow passage, Marcus bringing up the rear, his light momentarily sweeping back towards the control room entrance before he turned to cover their retreat. The passage ahead was darker, narrower than the main corridor, lined with thick bundles of pipes and conduits sweating condensation. The air felt colder, damper, carrying a faint chemical tang beneath the persistent smell of mildew and old concrete. Orlov's fresh boot prints were starkly visible in the thin layer of dust, leading deeper into the darkness. Behind them, another roar of rage echoed from the control room, followed by the shattering crash of electronic equipment. The creature wasn't pursuing, not yet. It seemed locked in a frenzy of destruction within the chamber housing the Nightingale chair. "It's destroying the chair," Ben panted, stumbling slightly as he hurried along. "Or reacting to it," Alina corrected, her voice tight with fear. "Maybe severing its own connection, or maybe it just hates it." "Doesn't matter," Alex grunted, pushing the pace. "We need distance." He focused on the tracks ahead. Orlov knew they were coming. He knew they'd likely follow the psychic lure or the map towards Gamma. Was he leading them into an ambush or fleeing something himself? The psychic pressure, the silent command from the now-distant chair, remained an insistent throb against Alex's temples. Gamma, the source, Gamma. It felt less like a specific instruction now and more like a beacon drawing them onwards. He glanced at the others. Alina's face was set, focused on moving forward. Ben looked perpetually terrified, casting nervous glances at every shadow. Chloe stumbled along, eyes vacant, occasionally muttering disconnected phrases, wires singing, black ice growing. The listener hears. Marcus moved with his usual unnerving calm, but Alex noted his head scanning constantly, checking high and low, his grip tight on his weapon. The passage descended gradually. Water dripped persistently from overhead pipes, forming slick patches on the floor. They passed several unmarked steel doors, all firmly shut and featureless. Alex tried one. It was locked solid. No time to investigate side rooms. Follow the tracks. Reach Gamma. "Hear that?" Marcus stopped abruptly, holding up a hand. They froze, listening. The sounds of the creature's rampage in the control room were fading behind them. Ahead, faintly, Alex heard it, a rhythmic clank. Clank, clank, metal on metal, slow, deliberate. Sounds like, Ben whispered, someone hitting a pipe, signaling. Or working, Marcus countered quietly. Ahead, 50, 60 meters. He indicated a slight bend in the passage. Orlov setting a trap, repairing something. The deliberate rhythm was unnerving. Alex felt the paranoia spike. Was it a lure? Was Orlov trying to draw them into a kill zone? Lights off, Alex ordered softly. Move slow, single file against the right wall. They clicked off their headlamps, plunging the passage into near-absolute darkness, broken only by the faint residual glow from emergency indicator lights on some junction boxes, tiny red and green pinpricks in the oppressive black. Their night vision struggled to adapt. The rhythmic clanking continued, seeming louder now. Marcus took point, moving with ghost-like silence. Alex followed, hand trailing lightly on the damp, cold concrete wall for guidance. He could hear Elena's shallow breathing close behind him, then Ben's occasional stumble, Chloe's soft, incoherent murmurs. The darkness felt absolute, pressing in, amplifying every tiny sound, every imagined threat. The chemical smell was stronger here. They rounded the bend slowly. Up ahead, perhaps 30 meters away, a faint, flickering light source cast dancing shadows on the passage walls. The clanking originated from that area. It stopped. Silence, except for their own breathing and the persistent drip of water. Alex felt his heart hammer against his ribs. Had they been heard? A beam from a powerful flashlight suddenly cut through the darkness from the light source ahead, sweeping directly towards them. "Identify yourselves," a voice commanded from the light, rough, heavily accented, Russian. Instinctively, Alex, Elena, Ben, and Chloe ducked down, pressing against the wall. Marcus remained standing, a dark silhouette against the faint emergency lights, but didn't return fire or activate his own light. "We are explorers," Alex called back, trying to keep his voice steady, pitching it to sound non-threatening. "We mean no harm. We're trying to find a way out." The light beam held steady on their position. "Explorers, in Sigma 7, the voice was laced with disbelief and deep suspicion. "No one explores Sigma 7. Who sent you?" "No one sent us," Alex replied. "We tracked rumors, historical records." He decided on a partial truth. "One of us," he indicated Elena without being able to see her, "is looking for her grandfather. He served here." There was a pause. The flashlight beam didn't waver. The clanking didn't resume. "Petrova," the voice asked, a new edge to it. "Mikhail Petrova's granddaughter." Elena gasped softly. "Yes, you knew him." "Knew him," the voice was harsh, bitter. "He was my commander, my friend, before this place, before Volkov. Twisted him, twisted everything." The light beam dipped slightly. "You should not have come here, girl. This place is poison." Volkov again. Alex felt Elena stiffen beside him. "Who are you?" Alex called out. "My name is Dmitry Orlov," the voice replied, confirming their fears. "And I am the last guardian of this cursed place, or perhaps its prisoner." The flashlight beam swung away from them, pointing down at the floor near Orlov's position. Come forward, slowly. No sudden movements. Your security man back there, he indicated Marcus's silhouette, keeps his weapon down. Alex hesitated. Walk into the light. Towards the man the logs potentially named a traitor, the man whose tracks they'd been following. But what choice did they have? He seemed to control the way forward. Okay, Alex called back. We're coming. Marcus lowered the weapon slightly, visible but non-threatening. Marcus complied, lowering the carbine's barrel towards the floor, though his stance remained ready. Alex switched his own light back on, keeping the beam low, illuminating their cautious advance. Elena, Ben, and Chloe followed suit, creating a small pool of light as they moved forward. As they approached, the flickering light source resolved into a battery-powered lantern sitting on an overturned crate. Beside it stood Dmitry Orlov. He matched the vague descriptions. Older, perhaps late 60s or early 70s, but wiry and tough. He wore mismatched, patched fatigues and scavenged gear. His face was deeply lined, etched with years of hardship and paranoia, dominated by pale, watchful eyes that missed nothing. He held a heavy, modified pipe wrench in one hand, the source of the clanking, and an old but functional Makarov pistol in the other, aimed loosely in their direction. The passage widened slightly here, revealing a heavy blast door set into the left wall, marked Biolab Gamma, Biosupport Gamma. Orlov had apparently been trying to pry or hammer the locking mechanism. Close enough, Orlov commanded as they stopped about 5 meters away. His gaze flickered over each of them, lingering on Elena, then assessing Marcus with a professional eye. So, Apex Volkov. He spoke Alex's call sign, making it sound like an accusation. Subterranean ghosts. I track radio frequencies. Your van's comms chatter was faint but detectable near the surface access point days ago. I wondered who was foolish enough to come looking. You knew we were coming? Alex asked, surprised. I know everything that happens in my domain, Orlov stated flatly. Heard your entry charge. Heard your firefight with the Echo, the Mimic as you call it. Heard the specimen in the archive wake up. He gestured towards the blast door with the wrench. Now you follow the chair's call, yes, to Gamma. The chair, Ben asked nervously. You know about the psychic broadcast? Orlov snorted, a harsh, humorless sound. I live with its whispers, boy, have for decades built up resistance, not immunity. His eyes narrowed. But it seems stronger now, since you woke it up fully. We didn't mean to, Elena said quickly. We're trying to understand what happened here, to my grandfather, to everyone. Orlov's gaze softened slightly as he looked at Elena. Your grandfather was a good man, a patriot, until Volkov and stage III, the black fluid. It broke him, amplified his fears, his regrets, turned him into a weapon they couldn't control. He spat on the floor. Volkov always pushing. Faster results, higher risks. Damn his cursed name. Alex flinched inwardly. The name again, tied directly to the project's disastrous turn by someone who was there. What Volkov? He asked, needing to know. Major K. Volkov. Orlov stared at Alex, suspicion returning full force. You ask about Konstantin Volkov. Why? His name was in the logs, Alex said carefully, signing off on orders. He was the project lead, Orlov growled. A ruthless, ambitious bastard obsessed with weaponizing the human mind. He saw Nightingale not as communication, but as control, as domination. Orlov paused, studying Alex's face intently in the combined beams of their lights. "You have his eyes." The blood drained from Alex's face. It wasn't just a common name. Konstantin Volkov, project lead, his eyes, the Urbex obsession, the pull towards forgotten places, the specific interest in Cold War bunkers. Was it some horrible, buried legacy? Was he unconsciously drawn to his ancestors' greatest, most monstrous failure? The thought made him feel sick, complicit. The engine's whispers hadn't needed to plant the idea. The truth, or the possibility of it, was enough. Alina looked at Alex, shock and a flicker of fear in her expression. Ben shifted uneasily. Marcus remained impassive, but Alex imagined he could feel the weight of the soldier's scrutiny. I didn't know," Alex stammered, the denial feeling weak even to himself. Orlov held his gaze for a long moment, then gave a short, sharp nod, seemingly accepting the denial or perhaps deeming it irrelevant. "He died here. During the incident, tried to initiate a failsafe, they say, too late." He gestured towards the Gamma blast door again. "This leads to the biolabs, the synthesis center, the specimen containment, the source of the black fluid. The chair wants you there. It thinks you," he nodded towards Alina, "carry the genetic key, perhaps. Resonance with your grandfather. It thinks he," nodding at Ben, "can interface with the core systems. It thinks he," nodding at Marcus, "is susceptible to command protocols. And you," Orlov looked back at Alex, "it fears your name, your potential." The words mirrored the whispers Chloe had reported, lending them terrifying credence. "What about the mimic?" Alex asked, trying to regain control of the conversation. "And the thing from the archive?" "The echo is a psychic manifestation born from collective fear and the chair's early broadcasts," Orlov explained impatiently. "A side effect. Dangerous but not central. The creature in the archive, Operator 9, is a stage III failure, osteoconversion. The fluid crystallizes the host, turns them into a living psychic resonator, permanently linked to the chair. It shouldn't have woken. Your activation of the chair must have sent it a command or caused feedback." "And you," Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice level, "why are you trying to get into the biolab?" Orlov scowled, hefting the wrench. "The chair. Its influence grows, the broadcast command. Harder to resist. I tracked your approach, hoped you could help me breach this door. My tools are inadequate." He looked towards the darkness back the way they came. "And now, with Operator 9 loose, containment has failed. The primary failsafe must be activated from Biolab Gamma's control center." "A failsafe?" Ben asked eagerly. "To shut it all down?" "To sterilize the facility," Orlov corrected grimly. "Thermite charges, neurotoxin gas flood, reactor core overload. Sigma-7 cannot be allowed to remain. What escaped the archive is only one failure. There are others contained within Gamma. Worse things." "Sterilization, not rescue." Alex looked at his team. This changed everything. Orlov wasn't trying to help them escape. He was trying to bury the entire facility, presumably with them inside it. "We won't help you do that," Alex stated firmly. "We need to find a way out, not die in a fireball." Orlov's eyes hardened. "You think you have a choice? Listen." He tilted his head towards the passage behind them. Faintly carried on the damp air, they heard it, a heavy, rhythmic dragging sound, punctuated by occasional wet clicks. Operator 9 was coming. Slowly, perhaps damaged from its rampage, but coming. "It's tracking the chair's signal," Orlov said urgently. "Tracking us now that we're linked. It will find its way here, and it will not stop." He hefted the wrench again, turning back to the blast door lock. "Help me open this door or face that thing out here." Alex felt trapped. The creature behind, Orlov offering a potential path forward but towards certain death via failsafe, the psychic pressure urging them towards Gamma, and the mimic potentially still lurking. Adding to that, the devastating revelation of his possible connection to Konstantin Volkov, the architect of this nightmare. He looked at the blast door. It was their only apparent way forward, away from the approaching creature. But could they trust Orlov? Was the failsafe real or another trap? Was Orlov himself compromised, acting under the chair's influence despite his claimed resistance? "What's inside Gamma?" Alex demanded. "Specifically, what's the failsafe control look like?" "Labs, containment pens. A central control room overlooking the synthesis core," Orlov grunted, striking the locking mechanism again with the wrench. The metal screeched but held. "Failsafe requires 2 keys inserted simultaneously. One is in the control room safe. The other," he paused, glaring at Alina. "The other is keyed to Operator 12's genetic profile. Your grandfather's locket, girl. Is it intact?" Alina instinctively clutched the identical locket found on the Nightingale chair, the one taken from her grandfather's apparent fate. "This." Orlov nodded curtly. "That should function as the key, if the reader still works." A genetic key. Alina, the chair knew. It wasn't just pushing them towards Gamma, it was pushing the key towards the failsafe mechanism. Why? Did it want sterilization? Or did it know Orlov planned it and wanted them there to stop him, or for some other purpose entirely? The dragging sound from the corridor behind them was closer now. Slower than a walking pace, but steady, relentless. "Decision time, Volkov," Orlov snarled, gesturing for Alex's pry bar. "Help me or die." Chapter 7, Within the Source. The rhythmic scrape and click of Operator 9 dragging itself down the corridor grew louder, closer. Each sound grated on Alex's nerves, amplified by the silence and the crushing weight of the psychic command still pulsing from the distant Nightingale chair. Gamma. Now. The source. Orlov, his face grim and slick with sweat under the lantern light, gestured impatiently towards the blast door's locking mechanism with the Makarov. "Volkov, pry bar, now, or we all become crystal statues for your ancestors' museum," Orlov snarled, the paranoia flaring in his pale eyes. Alex glanced back down the dark passage. He couldn't see anything yet, but the sounds were maybe 30 meters away, steady, implacable. There was no choice. Trapped between the approaching monster and the potential madman with the only apparent way forward. Sterilization seemed marginally better than being torn apart or converted by the crystalline horror. Marginally. "All right," Alex agreed, his voice tight. He held out the pry bar towards Orlov. "Show us where." He subtly shifted his stance, trying to keep himself between Orlov and Alina, who held the locket, the apparent genetic key. Orlov snatched the bar. Here, he pointed with the pistol barrel to a heavy steel plate set flush into the door near the main locking bolts, secured by several large hex bolts. Manual override access. Bolts are corroded solid. Brute force needed. Ben, Alex ordered, check for any external power conduits to this lock system while we work. Anything you can cut or disable if we need to stop Orlov later. Ben nodded quickly, eyes darting nervously between the door and the dark corridor behind them. He began scanning the wall near the door hinges with his flashlight, looking for junction boxes or cable runs. Marcus moved to Alex's side, gripping his own, shorter pry bar. On 3, Alex grunted, wedging the tip of his bar under the edge of the access plate. Marcus found Purchase beside him. Orlov stood back, pistol aimed loosely towards the approaching sounds, wrench held ready. Elena helped Chloe press back against the opposite wall, trying to shield her. 1, 2, 3. Alex and Marcus heaved, muscles straining against decades of corrosion and neglect. Metal screeched, groaned, but didn't yield. The dragging sound from the corridor was closer now, maybe 20 meters. A wet, clicking sound accompanied it, like chitinous legs on wet concrete. Again, Alex yelled. They threw their weight into it. A single bolt head sheared off with a loud crack, ricocheting down the passage. The plate buckled slightly outwards. "It's coming," Ben hissed, having abandoned his search for conduits, his light fixed on the darkness behind them. From the bend in the passage, a shape began to emerge into the periphery of their lights. Tall, impossibly thin, moving with a jerky, dragging gait. Crystalline shards studded its form, catching the light like obsidian knives. It was the skeleton from the archive, but changed. The black crystalline structure had grown, enveloping it, creating a grotesque parody of limbs propelled by some unseen force, dragging one fused leg structure behind it. It seemed to pull itself forward, leaving a trail of the thick black ooze. Its shattered skull tilted towards them, empty sockets fixing on their position. Operator 9. "Hurry," Elena cried out. "Now," Alex roared. He and Marcus put every ounce of strength into one final, desperate heave. With a rending shriek of tortured metal, the access plate tore loose, clattering onto the concrete floor. Behind it lay a recess containing a simple, heavy lever mechanism, coated in grime and solidified ooze. Orlov shoved Alex aside. "Mine!" He jammed the end of his heavy pipe wrench into the lever socket, trying to force it downwards. It didn't budge. Stuck, corroded. Operator 9 was 15 meters away, accelerating slightly, its clicking, dragging sounds echoing horribly. "The ooze," Ben yelled suddenly, pointing at the mechanism. "It's like concrete. We need solvent or extreme cold." They had neither. Marcus slammed the butt of his carbine against the lever junction, trying to break the solidified ooze's grip. Chips flew off, but the lever held fast. 10 meters. Operator 9 raised a newly formed crystalline claw, sharp as volcanic glass. Alex looked desperately at the mechanism, then at the creature. An idea sparked, born of desperation. "Ben, the sample you took, the ooze itself, is it conductive?" Ben blinked, startled. Particulates looked metallic, possibly. Why? "Marcus, your backup defibrillator paddles," Alex yelled, remembering the heavy medical kit Marcus carried for emergencies. "Get them ready." Marcus, understanding instantly, dropped his pry bar and ripped open his med pack, pulling out the compact defibrillator unit and paddles. "Orlov, get clear," Alex shouted. Orlov scrambled back as Marcus slapped the conductive gel-coated paddles directly onto the metal lever mechanism, one on each side of the socket joint. "Charging," Marcus yelled over the creature's approach. 5 meters. Its shattered jaw seemed to stretch in a silent scream. "Ben, pour the sample onto the junction. Bridge the paddles," Alex commanded. Ben fumbled with the sample vial, unscrewing the cap with trembling fingers. Operator 9 lunged, crystalline claws slashing where they had stood moments before. Ben poured the thick, black fluid directly over the lever mechanism, the viscous ooze connecting the 2 defibrillator paddles. "Clear," Marcus bellowed, hitting the discharge button. Electricity surged with a loud crackle and a flash of blue-white light. The ooze sparked and smoked. The metal lever glowed red for an instant. Simultaneously, Operator 9 recoiled violently, its entire crystalline structure shuddering as if hit by a massive shockwave. It staggered back, clawing at its own chest, emitting a high-pitched, static-filled screech. The lever, freed by the thermal shock and electrical surge, slammed downwards under Orlov's recovered wrench with a heavy clunk. Inside the blast door, massive locking bolts audibly retracted. "It's open. Go," Orlov screamed, yanking Marcus's paddles clear and throwing his shoulder against the heavy door. Alex grabbed Elena and Chloe, shoving them towards the opening door. Ben scrambled after them. Marcus provided cover, firing a controlled burst from his carbine not at Operator 9, which was temporarily stunned and spasming, but at the ceiling directly above it. A chunk of concrete and pipework detached, crashing down and partially blocking the passage, kicking up a cloud of dust. They tumbled through the doorway into Biolab Gamma as Orlov and Marcus strained to heave the heavy blast door shut behind them. It closed with a booming echo, but the damaged frame and the debris from the ceiling collapse prevented it from sealing completely. Through the gap, Alex saw Operator 9 recovering, already beginning to claw its way through the rubble Marcus had created. They were inside, safe for a moment. Alex took stock of their surroundings. They were in a wide, sterile white corridor, drastically different from the rough concrete passages outside. The air here was cold, dry, and smelled sharply of ozone and antiseptic, though underscored by that same faint, sickly sweet scent associated with the black fluid. Emergency lights flickered intermittently, casting long, dancing shadows. Doors lined both walls, these ones made of reinforced glass or solid steel, many bearing biohazard symbols and Cyrillic warnings. K-A-R-A-N-T-E-N, quarantine. A-N-A-L-E-Z, analysis. S-E-N-T-Y-Z-Y-D-R-A, synthesis core. Down the corridor, perhaps 50 meters away, was another set of heavy blast doors, presumably leading deeper into the Gamma complex, towards the central control Orlov mentioned. "The control room," Orlov panted, leaning against the door they just entered, pistol still ready, "is beyond those far doors. We move. Now, before that thing outside breaks through the rubble. But as they started forward, a klaxon suddenly began to blare, a loud, intermittent whoop-whoop-whoop that echoed painfully in the sterile corridor. Red lights embedded in the ceiling began flashing, bathing everything in an emergency crimson glow. Above the doors they had just entered, and the blast doors further down, illuminated signs flashed. K-A-R-A-N-T, I-N-N-A-Y-B-L-O-K, I-R-O-V-K-I-A-K-A-T-I-V-I-R-O-V-A-N-A. Quarantine lockdown activated. Heavy bolts slammed shut audibly on the blast door behind them, sealing it tight. Simultaneously, thick steel shutters began to descend over the doors further down the corridor, slowly closing off their path forward. "No," Orlov cursed, running towards the descending shutters. The breach alarm. Operator 9's proximity must have triggered a secondary containment protocol. He reached the shutters just as they slammed shut with finality, cutting off the route to the control room. They were trapped in this section of the corridor, locked in. The klaxon continued its relentless blare, grating on their already frayed nerves. The psychic pressure from the distant chair seemed momentarily muted, overshadowed by the immediate sensory assault. "Can we override it?" Alex yelled over the klaxon, joining Orlov at the sealed shutters. Orlov slammed his fist against the thick steel. "Not without control room access. We're locked in this subsection." Ben was frantically examining a nearby wall panel, its screen now displaying the flashing quarantine warning. "System is citing biohazard containment breach sector Delta added." "That's us." And atmospheric purge protocol initiated, cycle time 10 minutes. "Purge protocol?" Elena asked, her face paling under the flashing red lights. "What does that mean?" "Neurotoxin gas," Orlov stated grimly, confirming Alex's fear. "Standard procedure for a Class 4 breach. Cleanses the affected sector." He looked around wildly. "We have 10 minutes to find shelter or override the purge sequence locally." Panic surged. 10 minutes, trapped in a corridor filling with nerve gas. Alex scanned the doors lining the walls. Analysis, quarantine, which one offers protection? Quarantine rooms might be sealed, Orlov guessed, but analysis could have airlocks or independent atmosphere controls. He ran towards the nearest door marked ANALEZ03, trying the handle. Locked. Electronic keypad beside it was dark. "Check other doors," Alex ordered. He, Marcus, and Ben began trying handles, examining keypads, all locked tight. Chloe suddenly cried out, pointing towards a large reinforced glass window set into the wall opposite Analysis 03. It looked into a darkened laboratory beyond. "There, look." They crowded around the window, peering into the dim lab. It was filled with complex equipment, centrifuges, gene sequencers, containment hoods. But what drew their attention was movement in the shadows at the back. Something pale and multi-limbed unfolded itself from behind a large incubator. It wasn't the mimic, this was different. Wet, vaguely translucent, with too many joints and small, black, unblinking eyes dotting its surface. It seemed to be observing them through the glass. "Another non-viable asset," Ben whispered, horrified. Before anyone could react, The creature inside the lab scuttled forward with unnatural speed and slammed a multi-jointed limb against the inside of the reinforced window. A network of cracks instantly appeared on the thick glass. It hit it again, harder. The glass bowed inwards. The klaxon blared. Red lights flashed. Behind them, Operator 9 could likely be heard starting to break through the blast door rubble. Ahead, the path was sealed. Neurotoxin purge imminent. And now, another horror trying to break out of a lab into the corridor with them. Alex felt the psychic static surge again, coalescing into a single, terrifying thought, no longer a command, but a cold statement of fact whispered directly into his soul. The source is unbound. Welcome to Gamma. The end.